So is the Feiyutech AK4500 the best gimbal on the market? Find out in this full video review. Okay, so welcome to the video. Now, before we open this up and I show you all of the stuff that comes inside this huge carry case, let me get into some of the specifics about the product. Now, in the UK here, it costs between £600 to £700. In the US, that's around $749 US. Now, it can actually take a pretty serious weight. It can carry around 4.6 kilograms, which is around 10 pounds in the US. Now, we use quite a light setup, but you can already tell when we've used this, there's some real strength behind those motors. So we use a Sony A6400, which is what you're watching me on now, and we use a Sigma 16mm lens on that. And it's actually quite a long lens. You'll see that in some of the shots that we have. And one of the big problems with the Sony A6400 is that there's no image stabilization built into the camera, and there's none in the Sigma lens either. So when you're trying to vlog with it, it's a very shaky camera. So you do need to use a tripod or a gimbal. So this is a great test for this camera. Now, the gimbal comes with 12 hours of battery life, and that's really great because some cheaper gimbals actually run out really fast, and there's nothing worse when you're filming and the gimbal just suddenly dies. So having 12 hours of battery life is seriously good. Now, for the price, you know, this is a proper serious gimbal, and with that comes a bit of a steeper learning curve, as you'll see in the video, but actually I think it's really worth it. So when you open up the retail box, you're greeted with this massive polyester suitcase, which is actually a pretty handy carry case, and it adds quite a lot of strength to the gimbal if you're, taking it on the road with you. But let's open it up and let's see what's inside. So when you open this huge case, there's loads of stuff within this box, and I'm going to run you through a bit about what's included in this. But let's start with the actual gimbal itself. Now, it's a pretty big gimbal. It's not quite as heavy as it looks, but there is a bit of heft to it. But the main thing I like about it is the amount of locks it has, and it's good for a few reasons. The first is that you can lock it into this position, in a vertical position, and it makes it great for when you have it in your bag. If you're used to some cheaper gimbals where you cannot lock them, this will be sort of shaking around and this will be moving around, and it can really upset the balancing if you've done that ahead of time. So this is great. You can just put this in your bag like this. You can also remove and loosen this section here, take this section off, and then you can actually take the top part off, and then it will go down into kind of like half this size. So that makes it great when you're traveling with this gimbal. And then the second reason these locks are great is because you actually get this kind of tripod section here in the bag. You can screw this to the bottom. So when you've got the tripod affixed, this makes it great for balancing. If you've ever tried to balance a gimbal before without a tripod attached, it's so hard. You have to hold it up with one hand and try and balance it. It's a nightmare. So what is great about this is you have these little locks. So if you unlock each padlock here on the side, you'll see that you can actually, let's unlock that one there, let's unlock this one here on the side, and you can see once they're unlocked, each part becomes independently movable. So you can see I've just unlocked all these three here, but if we now lock these two again, you can see this doesn't move, but this one will. And it just makes it really great if you want to accurately balance your gimbal. Super perfect if you're on the move. Just remember though to make sure to unlock these before you turn the gimbal on, because you don't want to damage those motors. So the next thing I want to talk about, I've already attached it as you saw, but this is the tripod that comes included in the box. So you can screw this to the bottom, and what I love about this is that of course you can use it as a tripod, and this really helps you get some really nice steady shots, especially if you're doing something like a time lapse. But what you can also do is fold the tripod down, and then you can use it as an extension rod for your actual gimbal. And this is really cool because normally if you use a gimbal, you only have this one handle to use. You wouldn't have this piece here, and you're limited in the height that you can get. So this adds about another foot of height that you can get if you're really trying to get those high or low angle shots, which is really cool. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is this super light carbon fiber rod. Now this is really great because, as I say, it's super light, but the beauty of it is that you can detach the tripod, and then you can attach this to the bottom of the gimbal, and this gives you even more height, perfect for those super high shots or low shots. But then there's another section on the bottom, so you can actually reattach the tripod if you want even more height, or if you just want to pop this on a table and maybe have it at a higher headroom, or just more height for various videos you might be doing, time lapses, that kind of thing. So it's just great to have this in the bag, in the box, as another option. And you can actually use this as a second handle on the back of the gimbal, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute when we look through the accessory pack too. Right, and then next up, we get the base plate, and this is really cool because in some gimbals you actually attach the camera to the gimbal itself, and then it means when you remove the camera at any point, you have to rebalance the entire gimbal, which is really, really annoying. So this just means that you can loosen this here, you can take off the base plate and leave it on your camera, take your camera off, and then the gimbal remains perfectly balanced. The other thing they've included, which is really cool, and you can attach this to the front of the base plate, is a lens supporter. And if you notice, it actually has some little wheels here. So if you have a lens like ours, which has quite a large kind of focus puller, you can adjust your focus and it will allow your focus ring to move around. You know, some gimbals may have a base plate which actually stops this. If it rests on something which doesn't allow any movement, you're not going to be able to actually move the focus, adjust the focus or the zoom at all. So this is really great. It allows you to do that, and you just simply attach it to the front of the base plate. Okay, so next, if we bring in the accessories kit, this comes with the main box, so we'll get into that. I'll show you what's inside. So inside this box, I want to show you this. This is really cool. This is the Hyperlink Controller. Now what this allows you to do is kind of use your gimbal a bit like a magic wand. If you move around like this, the gimbal will actually follow your motion wirelessly as well. So, you know, we don't tend to use this for much of our studio work here. You know, there's two of us in here, so we can film fine. But if you're filming on your own, or if you just want to avoid touching your camera to avoid any shakes, you could kind of move this around and your gimbal and camera will follow perfectly with the motion of your hand. So this is really, really cool. Secondly, you've got this focus puller motor. Now this is great, again, if you want to use maybe the side of the gimbal here to pull your focus without having to touch the camera. So, you know, if your camera's on the gimbal, you're walking around, instead of having to put your hand over and move and possibly shake your shot, you can just simply use this with this attached, and this will adjust the focus. So it just means you avoid those shaky shots. And I just love that you can control it directly from the gimbal itself. It's a really good selling point of the gimbal. So also in the box, you've got an adapter which holds your iPhone and can also hold a monitor, which is really, really cool. But one of the best features, one of the best accessories I love about this is this. And what you can do is you can pair it with the carbon fiber handle that we showed you earlier. And what you do is you basically screw this onto here, and then you attach this to the gimbal itself. And what this does, this gives you a second handle. So, you know, if you've ever used a gimbal before, it can get seriously heavy if you use any kind of, you know, heavy camera or large lens, and you're kind of scrunched around the back, holding your camera for hours on end. This enables you to share some of that load, and it just makes it easier to angle the camera down, to pull it back up. It's a great little feature, and we'll show you exactly how this works too. So now if we take off the carbon fiber handle, another great thing is you can actually attach the Hyperlink Controller to this as well, and you can use this as the second arm, which is great, but also because you've got these extra controls on here, you can do things like pan and tilt for one, and then you've got other features on here on the other. And I just love that you've got a second handle, but you've also got the ability to record and stop and take photos from this hand as well. So if you're left-handed or right-handed, this is a great thing to have in the box. So one reason I like this is you can actually change all of your settings and features directly from the gimbal itself, rather than some gimbals where you actually need to get an iPhone or an Android app and you kind of do the settings away from the gimbal. This is much better because it's on the gimbal, it's balanced, everything works as it should, and it just makes your whole workflow much faster. On the back here, we have a shortcut button. So if your gimbal isn't straight, just double tap this and it will rebalance. On this side, we have a function button which will lock the touchscreen display. Then we have this wheel here, which is a multi-function button. You can use it as a follow focus, digital zooming, depending on your camera or lens. And if you press and hold the knob, it will put the setting in pan, tilt, and roll mode. So you just turn on the gimbal by holding this button here. And one of the best things about this gimbal, in my opinion, is that you don't have to use an app to change the different modes and settings. You can do it all from the touchscreen here. A very good feature, as there's nothing worse than having to get your phone out each time you want to change the modes when you're out on a shoot. You have 4 modes. You have lock, and this locks all directions, keeping the camera in the same position. You have pan mode, and this only lets the camera move sideways. And then you have pan and tilt mode, which is both side to side and up and down. And finally, you have the all follow, which is in every direction. You can do other stuff such as changing the payload setting and calibration in the menus. You have the default mode, which is kind of like an auto mode, smooth mode, which is for very slow moving shots, action mode, which is for quick whip pans, and a customized mode where you can change your own motor settings. So you have a selection of different types of positions you can put this gimbal in. And you also have inception mode. Now, this makes the camera do a full 360-degree rotation. You can also edit this and change the speed as well as the direction it will turn in. So if you want just one full rotation, you can choose this, or you can rotate it just continually until you want it to stop. There's also a really cool motion time-lapse option. Now, this is a really good feature for when you want to film a time-lapse, or if you want to film yourself and have the camera pan. There's also an option to use your last settings, and this is really good if you're on the go and you want to get a quick shot. It just saves you going through all of your settings again. And then finally, two more features. You've got selfie mode, which is perfect for those stabilized smooth vlogging shots. And then you've got portrait mode, which is a really good feature for vertical videos, especially now it's becoming more popular with apps like Instagram and TikTok. To put it in this mode, you have to tilt the gimbal like so for it to let you activate it. Another note is that there's a really good function in the menu settings, so you can actually control some of your camera settings if you have it connected. You can change the ISO, exposure compensation, and white balance. Okay, so that's our review and look at the Feiyutech Ak4500 gimbal. Now, I've got to say, I do really love this gimbal. We've had it for 6 months and we didn't want to rush this review out because we've really been putting it through its paces. We've taken it to Amsterdam, we've done a lot of our videos and the B-roll that you've seen in other videos with it. And it's such a great gimbal. It's so versatile. I love that it comes with this extra handle, the touchscreen controls, the tripod, and what's the main reason you want a gimbal for, right? You want steady shots, and this certainly delivers on this. Now, I know it's a lot more expensive than some of the cheaper gimbals out there, but I think with all of the value you get in the pack and the quality of the build, I really do think it's worth it, especially if you have a slightly heavier camera or bigger lens like we have, such as the Sigma lens we're using. Now, the only downside I would say, and this is a fault I've seen on a lot of other YouTube creators' channels, is that there's 2 screws that should go into here. And we found also that only 1 screw can go in here. Now, it's not a huge problem because this is pretty secure. I mean, there's not even any screws in here at this moment, and it's still pretty secure, but we can screw 1 screw in and it's been secure. But when you're holding up, a camera which could be thousands of pounds or dollars, it is a little bit risky. So I would like to see Feiyutech improve that and then hopefully send us another screw or a section for this piece here. But overall, I would certainly recommend this Feiyutech gimbal. Let me know what you think of this gimbal in the comments section below. Have you used one or are you thinking of getting one? Let me know, and I promise I do get back to every single comment. So thanks for watching.